It is now time for our third humorous speech. Pete Silliman, Pete the Plumber. Pete the Plumber, Peter Silliman.
Truth is, I'm not a plumber. I hate plumbing. I much prefer electricity. Why would I prefer a riskier operation? Well, it's really rather simple. Because if you connect a light in the ceiling incorrectly, it doesn't leak all over the floor. This morning I'm going to share with you 3 things that I have learned performing plumbing operations at my new used house, 35 years old. So I've been forced to become a reluctant plumber. One day we were working in the basement because we decided to retile the entire basement. And all of a sudden, to our shock, water started pouring from the ceiling onto the floor. This is every homeowner's nightmare, dreading the possibility of a water leak that you can't fix or have to clean up the mess from. But I instantly knew exactly what had happened in this case and where it was coming from. See, when we first moved into the house, we quickly discovered that the kitchen sink, when you pulled out the hose with the sprayer on it, the hose leaked whenever you turned the faucet on. So we'd stuck a bucket underneath the sink, and the week before I'd even gone out and bought a new faucet. It was still in the box. But the problem was, nobody had ever emptied the bucket. So I cleaned up the bucket full of water, and I cleaned up the mess that was now in the sink, and I decided I'm not going to procrastinate and put this off any longer. I'm going to tackle this tonight, so this isn't going to happen again. Now I'm here to report that this operation went really well. I fixed it in about an hour. And the hardest part was taking out the old one. I was really impressed that the new faucet set that I bought was a complete set. It had everything I needed, and even came with a special wrench for the installation. So I was like, man, products have gotten better. This was pretty easy. So why did I put it off for so long? Because I thought it was going to take a whole lot longer and be a whole lot more complicated. Turned out to be really easy. I also had to remove and replace a couple of toilets because I was putting tile down on the floor and you had to get around the toilet. When I did that, I discovered that I had some old valves in my house, and even if you turned them all the way off, water still came out of them. So they were kind of corroded and the rubber seal was gone. So I went to the Home Depot store and explored and said, well, what kind of new products do they have out there that can help me with this? And I discovered some really cool products. And one of them looks like this. And these are called shark bite or gator bite connections. And basically all you have to do is cut off the end of your old pipe, whether it's a copper pipe or plastic or whatever you have, clean up the end and stick this on and you're done. And I was like, there's no way it can be that easy. But sure enough, I tested it out, and it is. And this product, you can even remove the gasket and push on the knob and remove it and reuse it again. Now this one is an example of the same type of connection, but this one is not reusable. So I could demonstrate by sticking my pinky in here, but it would never come off again, and you'd be stuck calling me brass pinky, which doesn't sound so masculine. Goldfinger sounds really cool, but brass pinky, not so much. So I came up with a plan to replace all these defective valves in my house, and I happened to run into a plumber. Well, he happens to be my brother too. But he suggested something that would be even easier. So you go out and buy a new valve, and it just so happens that the existing valves, when you have brass plumbing, are what they call a compression fitting. That means when you have the pipe on there, it has a little brass ring on here that when you cinch it down, it compresses around the pipe, and that's what forms the seal. So he's just like, well, just take the old one off, put the new valve on, reuse the same brass fitting and bolt, and put it back on again. So I came up with a plan to do this, bought a whole set of valves. Now the biggest problem I had was even the main water shutoff valve in my house was corroded, just like these ones. So I had to flip the breaker, shut off my well, drain off all the water out of my water system and my pressure tank. And that worked fine, and I went through my bathrooms and I replaced all these valves. There was one other thing that I had to do too. I discovered that I had a shower valve that leaked. So I bought a couple kits to replace a couple shower valves, And I went upstairs and did the first one upstairs, and it went really good. Hey, just took off the front cover, replaced all the parts. I bought the right kit so the parts fit right. And I thought, great, man, I'm a pro at this. And of course, the second time it's going to be easier. So then I went down to the master bath and started on that one. Got my pipe wrench out and gently started turning on the brass ring, well, as gentle as you can with a 3-pound pipe wrench, but it wasn't turning. It's a little stuck up there. So I got some WD-40 and sprayed on it, waited a little while, and I came back and I tried again. And this time it turned a little bit. But I kind of looked at it and the whole thing had turned. What? So I tried turning it back the other way, and I turned it some more and tried to get it off there, and snap! The whole thing broke off. Now, you understand, this moment in time, I don't remember if I actually hit something with the pipe wrench, or if I just imagined I hit something with the pipe wrench. It's all a little vague. But you understand the situation now, because the faucets in the bathtub do not have the shutoff valve that you do under the sink. So I can't turn on the water, but I can't just leave it off for a day while I go to the store the next day and get the parts. You understand? I got 12 kids in my house. I can't do that. It's just not possible. But I still had a couple of shark bites. So I went down to the basement, being really innovative, and I cut off the copper pipes feeding up into the wall, feeding my valve. And I put the shark bite valves on there. It was really pretty easy. Only dripped a little bit of water as I went through that procedure, and I placed the valves, and I was great. So now I was set to turn the water back on. So I called my wife and my daughter. They're like, how do you want us to help? I'm like, well, you are uniquely qualified because you can scream better than anybody else in case there's a leak. And I sent them to their stations up on the main floor and the upstairs. And flipped the breaker on the water, ran into the bathroom to make sure my valve wasn't leaking. I said, great, it's not leaking. But I heard water flowing. Jumped out into the basement. There's water pouring from the ceiling where I just placed the valve. So I jumped up there and turned it off. I was wet. But my son's bed, which just happened to be right below the water valve and the leak, was soaked.
Oh.
But in all this, it worked out well. I knew things were well because nobody else was screaming. So to sum up, I wanted to share with you this morning, I shared with you that the products are better, technology has gotten better, made things easier, and it's always easier the second time, sometimes. And as a side note, I found out that the water lines feeding up to that closet also fed the upstairs bathroom, but that's another story. And I also want to leave you with the thought that plumbing issues are always funnier when they happen at somebody else's house. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Peter.